Andrew Plitt here with andrewplitt.com. We are continuing in this video to expound on and explain silk rilling in Tai Chi. In this video, we're going to continue to talk a little bit about what's going on with the legs, and then if we have time, we'll get into what's going on with the torso. In the last video, we talked about how the rotation through the legs, the intention of rotation, going through the legs from the lower dantian down and out is external rotation. That's the spiral energy through the leg. The external spiral energy through the leg. Drawing that energy from the lower dantian up through the leg toward the lower dantian and turning the foot in toward the center line of the body is internal rotation. So those are the kinds of rotation going on with the legs. In the last video, we just talked about the situation in which the person's turning to the left. And so the right leg would be externally rotating, the left leg would be internally rotating, and that would allow them to turn to the left. The same would be true if they're turning to the right, so we're not going to go into that. It's just the left foot would be the one externally rotating, the right one would be internally rotating, and they would be turning toward the right. So same principle, just in reverse. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about misconceptions with this rotation of the legs and how silk rilling is applied in this way. And we're also going to talk a little bit about what happens when you are not turning from one side to the other. What's happening? Are there times when both legs internally rotate and both legs externally rotate, or is it only ever one foot's rotating out while the other foot's rotating in? So I hope you'll stick around for this discussion. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we want to talk about is a misconception with this rotation of the legs and the feet. As always, when you are rotating the leg, you're never rotating individual parts of it. You're rotating from the hip and the rest of the leg stays aligned. So the knee stays lined up with the toes through the whole thing. The knee should never be pushing in or out. And this kind of leads us to the misconception that we're going to talk about today. So there is a concept in Tai Chi that when you are expressing power, or when you're doing an expressive movement rather than a receiving movement, that the power goes to the outside of the foot. So we're going to focus on this right foot here. And the misconception is that what's happening when you're expressing power is that you're actually shifting your weight to the outside of the foot, right? That this is where the weight goes on the foot. And we've talked about in previous videos where your weight should be centered in front of the heel, but also evenly dispersed across the bottom of the foot. There shouldn't be a time where it's just on one part of the foot. So that's already a problem to think that it needs to be out here when you're expressing. Now we'll look at the other foot for the other side of this misconception. And that is when you're doing a receiving or yielding or moving back type of motion, then the weight goes to the inside of the foot in here. Right? And that really has the same problem as your weight should be centered here, and then it should be evenly dispersed on the rest of the foot. It shouldn't be stuck on one side of the foot or the other. Now, one of the problems with this idea is if you're standing, we'll go ahead and look at this idea for now. So the weight going to the inside is we're doing a yielding motion. So we're going to look at this part of this skeleton's leg. And if he's shifting his weight here, so his foot, the weight is shifting to that side. That's basically going to open this angle and close this angle. And what it's really doing is opening this angle and closing this angle. So basically, if your foot is doing this, right, you're shifting your weight and you're rocking your weight, instead of having good alignment over that foot, when your foot rocks like that, it pushes the alignment of the leg in. So what's happening is this knee is being pushed medially. It's being pushed toward the center line. And instead of having a good solid structure through that knee, all of a sudden you're putting it in an awkward position where it's more likely to be injured and it has less strength, less stability. So it's just a very bad idea. So we can see that already this idea of shifting the weight to the inside of the foot is bad. Don't do it. And then if we go to this other idea again here, it's the same thing, but to the outside. So if we look at this lovely skeleton's leg again. So now he's shifting his weight to the outside of the foot. Now he's going to be stressing his knee to the outside. And so sometimes you'll hear people talk about how when you're doing that receiving motion or that internal weight shift, the knees should be pointing in, and then there should be like kind of squeezing in. And then as you do the expressing motions and the weight's going to the outsides of the feet, then the knees should be like pushing out. And that's just not a good idea with your knees. They shouldn't be pushing out this way. They shouldn't be pushing in this way. They should always be aligned. And so we're going to talk about what this saying actually means in this video and how you can do it and apply it, and how it actually is a saying referring to silk rilling, and how you can do this so that it's safe and a good idea for your body instead of putting yourself in more awkward, less stable positions like this idea of shifting your weight in and shifting your weight out. So let's come back down here to these drawings and let's get into what this actually means of when you're expressing goes to the outside, when you're receiving or drawing in that your weight goes to the inside of the foot. So the problem here is the weight. The idea that weight is where you're shifting your body's weight over your foot. And it's not about shifting your weight to the outside of the foot or to the inside of the foot. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about the direction in which the foot is moving. And this goes back to what we were just talking about silk rolling. So if someone is doing an expressing movement or extending the leg or moving the leg in a yang outward turning direction, they're turning the foot toward the outside of the foot, right? So the big toe is going toward the center line. The leg is externally rotating. So this is that motion. That's what we talked about when the person was turning to the left. This is what's going on with their right foot. The leg that is doing the external rotation, the direction the force is going is in the direction of the pinky or in the direction of the outside of the foot. It's not about shifting your weight to the outside of the foot and changing your structure all through the body. It's about spiraling through the leg toward this side of the foot. Very simple. So you can keep your knees aligned. You don't have to stress the knees by pushing them in and out. You can keep your feet in good contact with the ground. You don't have to let go of part of the ground with your foot to try to shift your weight to one side of the foot or the other. All those bad ideas that would change your structure through the body in a negative way are not necessary. It's just talking about the weight in this situation. The energy expression is going out and away, out toward this side of the foot. And so this is important to get a little more specific. The idea of the expressive movement or the expressing movement is not talking about in general what your whole body is doing. It's talking about what's happening through that part of the body. And because we're talking about feet, it's talking about what's happening through the leg, through to the feet, into the ground. So the expression or the outward movement is just talking about the external rotation or the clockwise turn, the yang movement of the right leg in this situation, because we're looking at the right foot here for this, going toward the outside of the foot. So it's just talking about what's happening with this leg. It's not talking about the fact that the movement's going forward or backward or turning this way, turning that way. We're just talking about this foot and the movement through this leg. Now, on the other hand, the yielding or turning in or counterclockwise movement that shifts the weight to the inside of the foot. Again, it's not shifting the weight over here because it's going to change the chain like we talked about. It's going to put things in an unsafe position. All that's talking about